the way that people in indigenous communities use it seems to be very different than the way that Westerners use it. But it's a very valuable tool for Westerners, so I don't think it's out of place for anybody who wants to get healed to go find things that heal them. And it's a very strong medicine for whatever culture a person comes out of. I think it could manifest its powers differently, but for Westerners who have the model of psychotherapy and talking about the inner world and how past, especially how childhood and traumas that happen to you can impede your growth as an adult. The way that ayahuasca works to like show people what that problem is and even sometimes how they can solve it is super valuable, and I'm sure that's going to be used in the future. It's just now coming onto the scene. It's just now being explored, so it's still finding its legs as far as people's judgment about it, whether it's harmful or not, things like that. It can help people. Not everybody, but it can help some people. I went to undergraduate school in that new college of the University of South Florida, and I had a BA in liberal arts, and I got a degree in fine art from the San Francisco Art Institute in painting, and then I went on to get a degree in counseling, a master's in counseling from San Francisco State University, and then I got a certificate in substance abuse counseling from UC Berkeley Extension. Then I went to graduate school for my doctorate at John F. Kennedy University, where I did my dissertation on gay people's experience with ayahuasca and how that affects their sense of identity. And then I was currently enrolled in the psychedelic assisted therapy certificate program at the California Institute of Integral Studies. I've been working with mostly homeless people who have severe drug and alcohol problems, along with some kind of mental health disorder. I also edit books, and I also am an associate editor at Chacruna Net, which is a site that publishes work by academics, but it's in a more popular form, so we don't have to read through a million footnotes or a lot of jargon. It's simplified for people of average education to read. I think there's two phases. One is the preparation for people that want to talk about what they want to do in an ayahuasca session or a retreat at Soltara, things that they might be worried about, including screening people who might be inappropriate for that. And then the other part is the integration part, which would be a longer process, talking about what came up during the sessions, what to make of how the material in the session relates to their intention, and just working on the general things that come up in an ayahuasca session, which can be very deep psychological issues. My interest in Soltara was sparked by hearing of the people that were being assembled to be part of the team. Another thing that interests me is that they're aiming to be a very ethical and supportive center, because there's a lot of places that are not ethical and that don't provide support after or even before, that screen poorly, or there's just a lot of bad stories that have come out of different centers in South America where there's not that much regulation. So it seemed like they were really taking it seriously, taking the care of the people who are going to be attending and making sure that it's not just a one-shot thing, that they're going to get their money, give them the ayahuasca, and then get rid of them. They're planning on making a community, offering support, getting people who are trained and people who are familiar with the medicine. So it seems like a higher level venture and something that I wouldn't be embarrassed or sad to have participated in, because it seems like it's taking from the very start an approach that is safety oriented and also a longer range involvement with the clients that are coming. Ayahuasca's ability to speak to people in metaphors and visions and images, where a question or an intention can be formed and you'll see a picture, something will show up, or you'll see the face of somebody that you had forgotten about, or some design that involves you in the design or the pattern, where you get a different sense of yourself. All of those things they're fodder for artistic creation, but they also almost feel like you can understand how art and ayahuasca, both painting, dancing, music, all these things ayahuasca inspires. And for me, it's just been like a fuel for art. And I come back from a session and I have many ideas. I try to recall them and freeze them in my mind so I can paint them. They're never as accurate or as beautiful as I've seen, but they can help to remind me of that experience and the things I learned. And I think that whole process of doing art, of whatever kind of art that people are interested in doing, it helps process the ayahuasca experience, and it helps recall it to mind again so that it's not forgotten, and the parts that were meaningful can be, made a note of and kept so that you can go back and take a look at them. I think there's a lot of different ways that the metaphors and the visions can be interpreted, and there's the way that indigenous people interpret them, and then there's the way that modern people who are acquainted with the psychotherapeutic paradigm interpret them. Symbols can be interpreted psychologically, or they can be spiritual symbols that people use as a portal to understanding, their reason for being on Earth. They can talk about childhood, they can talk about relationships, and show you things that later, through art or through writing or just remembering in the proper context, can give more meaning and tie into other visions and tie into things that you like, that strike you all of a sudden. You're like, whoa, I didn't understand that this snake reminded me of my mother, or whatever the connection is, that then you get an insight into, my mom was like a snake. Or it's a whole, it's to know that it's coming from you, or that it's your own material that you're being shown to teach you something. So then you can grab a hold of that in whatever way you can and ask it more, teach me more. Through art or through therapy or whatever means that you use. I think as a person grows, you take ayahuasca and then you grow more, and then you take ayahuasca again. The stuff that's you're transforming and looking at changes, so that it's not like, oh, you get the message and then you hang up the phone, because it's more of like an evolutionary process. So if you drink ayahuasca once and you're like, oh, good, I solved all my problems, that's great. But that didn't happen to me. I continue to have new problems and also get insight into my old problems that keeps me interested in doing it, and also in doing it in different contexts, because Santo Daime is one context that is, for me, it's a good way of staying connected and having a regular thing that I do with a regular group of people that I trust. But the other formats offer other things, and other insights have come to me that I would, I can't say that I really prefer one over the other. It's just different. Some are harder and some are easier, but I think there's a lot of benefit, and I haven't seen the end of the benefits that can come from it yet. So as far as I know, I'm going to continue to drink until I'm enlightened. When that happens, maybe I'll hang up the phone.